Part 90. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 891. Lady Caitlin and Helena were so welcoming. The two left Xiaopinggan to have lunch together in the villa, then have afternoon tea together, wait until the afternoon, chat, and finally have dinner together. When it got dark, Xiaopinggan had to leave Ms Caitlin at the villa on Odin Street, get on Longwu's carriage and return to number 169 Binhu Street. Of course, there are benefits to getting along like this. At least with Ms Caitlin and Helena, both of them have regarded Xiaopinggan as a trustworthy friend. The relationship between Ms Caitlin and Xiaopinggan is closer. Xiaopinggan can even feel that Ms Caitlin's feelings for him have become very subtle. This subtlety can be seen from the look in Ms Caitlin's eyes. It can be seen that this feeling is difficult to describe clearly. It is like a very good friend, like a sister and brother, and the mentality of a woman being grateful to a man and relying on trust are intertwined, and there is also a little difference between men and women. Hazy and ambiguous feelings. From beginning to end, Ms Caitlin never mentioned the matter of remuneration, and Xiaopinggan also seemed to have forgotten it, deliberately not mentioning it, but Xiaopinggan knew that the more things were not mentioned, the more serious this woman would be. As for Helena, Xiaopinggan clearly felt that this woman seemed to have discovered her own value, especially the effect of her detoxification technique on women. This woman was very caring and deliberately attracted and got close to him. Xiaopinggan also learned a lot from chatting with these two women. These two women may not be summoners and know nothing about magic, but they are fully aware of all aspects of Calendar and have many high-level connections. Not to mention anything else, Xiaopinggan felt that his path to becoming a fortune teller had already opened up just by chatting with these two women. Before Xiaopinggan stepped onto the carriage, Helena also confirmed the time with Xiaopinggan, and made an appointment to come to Xiaopinggan in 2 days and ask Xiaopinggan to perform a detoxification spell on her. When Xiaopinggan talked about the problem of insufficient divine power, the woman smiled calmly and said directly to Xiaopinggan, "As for divine power, you don't have to worry. Although it is difficult for ordinary people to get things like divine crystals, for me it's not something too scarce. In addition to divine power, you can think about performing a detoxification ritual. What other reward do you need? As a summoner, what I need most is the world bead," Xiaopinggan said half jokingly and half seriously. "My reward for performing a detoxification ritual is a world bead. Isn't this an excessive price?" "It's not excessive, it's very reasonable. In fact, you can ask for a little more," Helena said to Xiaopinggan with a smile, "because for women, beauty and health are the eternity of life compared to those cold and meaningless beads." Pursued. Ms Caitlin and Helena sent Xiaopinggan out of the villa, and personally watched Xiaopinggan get on the carriage and leave the villa gate. "Kelly, you dug up a treasure," Helena, who was watching Xiaopinggan's carriage disappear around the corner of the gate, turned her head and looked at Caitlin, who was reluctantly watching Xiaopinggan leave. There's an idea, you should be able to guess it." Ms Caitlin withdrew her gaze and shook her head lazily. "After what happened yesterday, I found that many of the things I pursued and cared about before were meaningless. Wealth and power are sometimes just burdens and cannot put you in danger. It gives me half a bit more sense of security when I'm out there, and now I realize that what I need is actually very simple, and I've been ignoring it before. Kelly, your current state is very dangerous. During dinner just now, you were staring at him eating with affection, like a happy little woman immersed in family life watching her husband come back for dinner. You disdain women like this the most before?" Ms Caitlin's face turned slightly red, and she showed a bitter smile. She murmured in a low voice, "Maybe I have really changed. After experiencing life and death, people will always change. I feel that I am not worthy. I'm afraid that I'm too enthusiastic and will scare him away and make him misunderstand me as a superficial and vulgar woman. Do you think this incident of skinning George Butcher will make him think that I gave it to him? It brings danger and bad luck. Lady Caitlin began to feel sad. Kelly, you are just thinking of a little girl who has just grown up and is in love. What about your wisdom and methods? This is not the Kelly I know. Helena gently hugged Mrs. Caitlin's waist, came close to Mrs. Caitlin's face, and waited for Mrs. Caitlin with serious eyes. He is a summoner, a person with unlimited future and many things to do in his career, summoner of longing and pursuit. If you really love this man, you can't worry about gains and losses like a little girl. Is your advantage age or youth? Of course not. Women like us want to capture a man's heart. The most direct way is to make him need you, to trust you and rely on you. You need to make yourself an indispensable person in his life, understand? There are young and beautiful girls everywhere. Do you think he will lack such a woman? Well, there is only one richest, beautiful, and shrewd widow in Kullander, and that is you, Kelly. If you can make him lucky to be with you, if you can make him successful, do you think he will still care? What rumors about Black Widow? I understand what you mean. Mrs. Caitlin's face regained her composure. Then what do you want? You know what I want. Everything I do is just to make the prosperity of the Kondra family continue and to make the roots of the Kondra family take root deeper. Helena also had a look of sadness on her face. Smiling bitterly, actually, sometimes I envy you. You can at least live for yourself, but I am already tied to the Kondra family. The street lights on Corland Street have come on. In the carriage, Xiaopingan suddenly saw a betting shop on the roadside still open and selling lottery tickets. Some workers and ordinary citizens who had just gotten off work were still queuing up at the door of the lottery shop, dreaming of getting rich. Thinking of Mr. Coin's words today, Xiaopingan's heart moved. He really wanted to see if he was really lucky. He knocked on the front window of the carriage and said, "Longwu, stop at the lottery shop on the roadside in front. You go buy me a lottery ticket, anyone will do." Okay. Longwu stopped the carriage on the side of the road, got out of the car neatly, and quickly walked to the betting shop to line up. If Longwu can win any lottery ticket he buys for himself, then his luck will really explode. Luck is also a resource that can be used. If this can be confirmed, Xiaopingan feels that he may be more aggressive in the future. A few minutes later, Longwu came. He spent 10 penny and bought a lottery ticket at will. Xiaopingan glanced at the numbers on the lottery ticket and put the lottery ticket in his pocket. More than an hour later, Xiaopingan finally returned to the door of number 169 Binhu Street. An extraordinary and magnificent black carriage has stopped at the door of the villa, and it is pulled by 4 black horses. Next to the carriage, under the streetlight, a man wearing a velvet hat and holding a cane stood under the streetlight. In the dark night, a group of mosquitoes were flying under the streetlight, chasing the light and warmth in the darkness. The man stood under the streetlight, looking a little embarrassed, as if he was forced to stand still, and a little scared and uneasy, looking around like a rabbit with his eyes. Longwu's carriage stopped directly behind the black carriage. Longwu opened the door. Xiaopingan got out of the car and stood in front of the man. "Franco Petrarch, long time no see." Looking at the face that he had met once before, Xiaopingan smiled slightly. This man is none other than Franco Petrarch, who had an entanglement with Xiaopingan before. Franco Petrarch was just a playboy. When he saw Xiaopingan again, he swallowed twice and was so nervous that he was speechless. He looked at Xiaopingan and then at the carriage next to him. The carriage door opened, and a man who also wore a velvet hat but had a completely different temperament than Franco Petrarch got out of the car. If the aura of Franco Petrarch at this moment reminded Xiaopingan of Reservoir Dogs, then the temperament in front of him, the arrogant man with blonde hair, sunken eye sockets and tightly pursed lips, reminded Xiaopingan of a wild wolf that could hunt yaks. "Mr. Xia, I am Quinn L. Ahrens. We are here to apologize to you, Mr. Xia, on behalf of the Ahrens family today." Golden Summoner. Author, Zhuanhuan. Chapter 892. Quinn L. Ahrens and Franco Petrarch didn't stay in the villa for long, less than 10 minutes, and then they left politely. The whole process was led by Quinn L. Ahrens from beginning to end. Franco Petrarch looked at Quinn L. Ahrens's face uneasily and spoke. Of course, the gift that represented their sincerity in apologizing was left behind. It was a brown leather suitcase. In the suitcase, there were a total of 30 world beads and corresponding spiritual crystals. These things mainly came from the Lens family. After seeing the apology gift brought by Quinn L. Ahrens, Xiaopingan had completely forgotten about Franco Petrarch. Looking at this guy again, he was even cuter than the boy who gave away money. When the two of them left, Xiaopingan personally sent them to the door, with a friendly smile on his face. I didn't expect Mr. Come and ask for advice. I am very interested in divination. The past is in the past, I won't take it to heart. The door here is open to the Ahrens family at any time. If the Ahrens family needs anything, I am very willing to help. Xiaopingan also smiled and said it was like saying goodbye to an old friend rather than saying goodbye to the mastermind who once wanted to assassinate him. The rich families in these places are really awesome. They took out 30 world beads and even the spiritual crystals without blinking an eye. Such rich people should naturally get closer to each other. In fact, what Xiaopingan wanted to say is, if they still have objections to him, they can send someone to assassinate them. As long as the assassination fails, they will give him 30 boundary beads. This is a risk he is willing to take. Then, under the enthusiastic gaze of Xiaopingan, Quinn L. Ahrens and Franco Petrarch got into the luxurious carriage, and the horses they pulled started running. The carriage quickly disappeared from Xiaopingan's eyes. Xiaopingan took a deep breath, locked the door, and returned to the living room of the villa. Woof woof. The black dragon had circled the box several times, sniffing around, and barked twice when Xiaopingan returned, indicating that there was nothing wrong with the box and that it had not been tampered with. Xiaopingan touched the black dragon's head and opened the box. Suddenly, his eyes were once again filled with colorful misty world beads, which made him squint. Scraping bones to heal wounds, burning camp, black sheep, Shenkuo, Li Ji kills snakes. Xiaopingan looked at the world beads and rubbed his hands excitedly. He almost wanted to drool. These world beads, the 30 world beads in front of him, should be enough for him to add 9 more divine bones, and he can easily become a second-level summoner. I didn't expect that an Ahrens family could do it to take out so many world beads easily, maybe because there are not many divine scrollers in this world, and ordinary people cannot fuse world beads at all, so the world beads can be accumulated. These big families should have collected world beads in the past generations. Habit, just like Ms. Caitlin's previous husband's family, even if the family cannot use it this generation, they may still prepare for the divine scrolls that may appear in the family in the future, so the Ahrens family can easily take out so many scrolls. Boundary Pearl is here. If a summoner wanted to obtain so many world beads from ordinary channels, it would take him years and years to collect them. It would probably take at least 3 to 5 years. But if he touches it like this, no. It's not a piece of cake. It's reconciliation. As soon as he reconciled like this, the Ahrens family took out 30 world beads at once. The Ahrens family can take out these world beads so readily this time, which means that their family's collection of world beads is definitely more than this. Mr. Coin did not think it was too difficult after hearing his request. Agreed instantly. Taking advantage of the big families is the fastest way for the divine scrollers in this world to obtain the world beads, because these big families have the most world beads. The previous skinned butcher George also did this. But he had his mind set on Ms. Caitlin, and he was unlucky enough to meet him. After thinking about this truth in his head, Xiaopingan felt vaguely that a door had been opened towards him. If he wanted to get the boundary beads, taking the upper route was a shortcut. Of course, how to take this upper route? Definitely more than one. I wonder how many world beads can be extorted if the heir of the Allen's family is kidnapped. Xiaopinggan rubbed his face and whispered to himself. After saying that, he shook his head and smiled. Allen, if the SI family were so easy to manipulate, George the skinned butcher would have gone away long ago, and he would not have his turn. Such a family would definitely have a summoner supported by the family, and it might be related to the Bureau of Investigation. The benefits and risks, it's reciprocal. If they didn't have the identity of the Investigation Bureau as a backing this time, the Aaron's family might not be able to take out these world beads so easily. Xiaopinggan picked up a few world beads and spiritual crystals and looked at them. He nodded secretly. He would not use the spiritual crystals of these world beads. After fusing these world beads, he would trade the spiritual crystals through other channels. It is estimated that I can replace it with a lot of world beads, so I really made a profit this time. Longwu, I'll leave the safety of the villa to you tonight. I'm going to the basement to fuse the world beads. After Xiaopinggan said to Longwu, he led Longwu towards the study room in the basement. As for Longwu, he followed directly to the study and guarded the door of the study like a door god. After having Longwu, the magic vine and the black dragon, Xiaopinggan felt much more at ease when he integrated the world beads. In the secret room, the first boundary bead that Xiaopinggan picked up was scraping bones for healing injuries. This was the boundary bead of Master Guan, flashing with light green light. This was the first time that Xiaopinggan fused with Master Guan's boundary beads. To show respect for the boundary pearl, I fused this one first. A drop of blood was forced from his finger and fell on the boundary bead. In just the blink of an eye, Xiaopinggan was surrounded by a cocoon of pale green light. As soon as Xiaopinggan opened his eyes, he heard the sound of thunder outside. He was in a tent, sitting on a stool, and there was a sharp pain in his right arm. An old man stood next to him, holding his right arm. General Guan, the arrow you were hit by has lost its poison, and the poison has penetrated deep into your bone marrow. Therefore, every time it is cloudy and rainy, your right arm will be in unbearable pain. If you want to cure it, you can only open the wound again and scrape the poison off the bones. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 893. Xuanhuan, that thief, really deserves to die. In order to prevent the public from exposing his scandal, he just issued an order last month to prohibit private writing of unofficial histories, and encouraged people to report each other. He has made the entire Linen City a mess. It was already dark at this moment. In the dining room of a certain family in Linen City, the door of the dining room was closed, and only a weak light came out from the room. Several men wearing the uniforms of the front division soldiers were gathered in the dining room, drinking wine, while cursing in a low voice. There were only 2 or 3 side dishes on the table, including peanuts, dried fish, wild rice, and spicy melon. Several of the men were also drinking too much, and all of them were blushing and thick-necked, so they couldn't help but start cooing. As soon as Xiaopinggan opened his eyes, he found that he was already lying on the table, his head was a little drunk, and under the bright light next to him, the faces of several drinking men were vaguely visible in front of his eyes. Xiaopinggan did not get up. He was still lying on the table, listening to the words of the soldiers beside him. His name at the moment was Xuanhuan, a soldier in the Southern Song Dynasty Palace Front Division. This is the last world bead that Xiaopinggan fuses. This world bead has the possibility of breakthrough fusion. The reason why the name Xuanhuan has been famous throughout the ages is just because he did one thing to eliminate traitors for the country and assassinate Xuanhuan. In history, Xuanhuan failed to assassinate Xuanhuan and was sentenced to death. However, Xuanhuan's desperate blow also greatly shocked Xuanhuan and other treacherous officials. After Xuanhuan's failed assassination, Xuanhuan lived in fear every day. Every time he went out, he had to bring more than 50 guards with him. At home, he lived alone in a pavilion, and even the servants could not get close easily. After living in such fear for a few years, he died. And Xuanhuan's identity was just an envoy and a military attaché in the front of the central hall of Linen City at that time. In Linen City, where there were many powerful people, he was just a small person. But in this small person, Xuanhuan, there was a lot of spring and autumn. His righteousness and Jingkei's courage faced Qin Hui, whose arrogance had brought disaster to the country and the people. When everyone else was wise enough to protect themselves, only Xuanhuan stepped forward and assassinated Qin Hui. Even though he died, he was honored. I heard that the portrait of the thief was painted for him by someone who wrote to the officials, and he had the audacity to ask the officials to praise him in person. Damn, Qin Hui, that thief is so virtuous and capable. He is really an old man. The sky has no eyes. A bearded sergeant drank wine and couldn't help but cursed. The traitor Qin Hui gave the official history to his son Qin 11 to write. Others who dared to write history wrote private histories. Even Li Guang, the deposed political minister, was accused by the traitor of always complaining and writing private history. He was framed for slandering the imperial court, and a private history prison was set up. 10 to 11 people including Li Guang's son Li Mengjian were imprisoned. Now in the government and the public, no one dares to say anything bad about that thief. I'm afraid that people in the next few hundred years will see it. After reading the official history written by the thief's son, I thought that the thief was a very loyal minister. Another person cursed in a low voice under the influence of alcohol. It would be great if Grandpa Yu was here. How could our Song dynasty be as cowardly as it is now? We still need to ask for peace from the golden dog. That thief Qin Hui is indeed like a dog to the outside world and a thief to the inside. The man drank and cursed, unable to hold back his tears. Well said, dog thieves are like dogs to the outside world and like thieves to the inside. This world has been ruined by these dog thieves. Brothers, we brothers have been friends for many years. Today, these words are just for my brother to say here after he drank too much. He scolded that thief Qin Hui and wanted to leave here. These words must not be said again. This person's heart is so far apart, that thief is now afraid that others will say bad things about him, and encourages denouncers everywhere. We old ministers must not capsize in the gutter. A fat sergeant shook his head and said, to put it bluntly, now the dynasty is full of beasts and beasts, rotten trees are officials, and Qin Hui's treacherous gang members are everywhere. We are ordinary people, and we don't have to live with anyone. Officials are all. Why are we so angry at those who are so mean to the golden dog? Instead of complaining here, I think it is more serious for us to take our own path. I want to follow the path of Chen Yahao. Go to the wine warehouse, that's a good place. I heard that Chen Yahao's brother-in-law opened a tavern near Kingbo Gate. The business is good. We can think of ways to make friends. Yes, we little people, who do we have to live with? Another sergeant sighed, lowered his head and took a sip of wine. Xuanhuan. A person next to him stretched out his arm and pushed Xiaopingan. When he found that Xiaopingan was lying on the table without moving, he couldn't help but muttered, Xuanhuan is drunk again. He was the only one who drank so hard just now. He lowered his head and drank without saying a word. Alas! He has been alone for these years, he should find an aunt. Oh, Xuanhuan has a fierce temper and says he doesn't want to drag others down. Okay, it's almost done. It's getting late. Let's go home. We have to be on duty tomorrow. The few soldiers who were drinking in the room dispersed. Xiaopingan was driven by 2 soldiers, one on the left and one on the right, out of the yard and onto the street outside. The one on the left of the 2 soldiers was still carrying his arm. A lantern. Linen City at this moment is the capital of the southern Song dynasty. Even at night, you can see the lights of thousands of houses in the city. Various buildings are lined up in rows and are extremely prosperous. But in this prosperity, I don't know if it is due to the influence of Qin Hui's party. Ping An always feels that the whole city has a somewhat gloomy atmosphere, especially on the streets of the city. If there are no lanterns at night, the streets will be dark, there are no street lights at all, and most people walking at night are wearing lanterns. Xiaoping's steps were slow and he let the two men carry him through the streets. After a while, he came to a house near the East Kingman of Linan City. The two men seemed to be very familiar with Xuanhuan. One of them touched Xiaoping's arms directly, took out a key, and unlocked the door. "Okay, Xuanhuan, your home is here. Are you okay? Do you want me to send you in?" The soldier who unlocked the door said and put the key back into Xiaoping's arms. "Don't forget I have to be on duty at the Yamen tomorrow morning." Xiaoping suddenly raised his hand, pointed to the alley next to him, and said in a vague tone, "Ah, here, why are there so many people crowded together?" The two military men looked towards where Xiaoping was pointing. One of them even raised a lantern. Next to it was an alley. It was pitch black, without a single bird, and there was no one anywhere. The two men couldn't help but trembled. "Go to bed quickly, don't talk nonsense." The soldier holding the lantern swallowed. "Ah, someone is here again." Xiaoping looked straight at the dark alley, his tone was straight, even with a hint of panic. "One is wearing white clothes, one is wearing black clothes, wearing a pointed hat, holding a morning stick. Ah, don't hit me on the head." Xiaoping yelled, and fell to the ground in a daze. He closed his eyes tightly and remained silent for a while. The two soldiers next to him were frightened half to death by Xiaoping. The night wind blew and they were all cold. They broke out in a cold sweat in the blink of an eye, and even the slightest hint of drunkenness woke them up. The two of them pretended to be brave, carried Xiaoping who had fallen to the ground to their home, and threw him on the bed. Then they stayed together, holding a lantern, and bravely left. After the two people left, Xiaoping, who was lying on the bed, opened his eyes. "Brothers, I'm sorry, I want to scare you tonight. If you want to kill Qin Hui, you still have to make a lot of preparations. I have to leave the palace first. Let's talk about it later." After finishing speaking, Xiaoping quickly got up from the bed and checked his belongings. He was the only one living in this house. It was not a poor family, but it was not rich either. In addition to this house, as a soldier in front of the palace, he also has a horse-cutting sword, several sets of clothes, more than 50 taels of silver and some copper coins at home. This family is not rich, but it is enough to kill Qin Hui. Xiaoping then picked up the horse-killing sword, swung it around the room, and performed a set of movements to check the abilities of Xuanhuan's body. Xuanhuan had been serving as a soldier, and his body was strong and powerful enough. It's just that some ligaments in the body have not been stretched, some movements cannot be performed, and the body's reaction speed is not fast enough. It still needs some conditioning and exercise before the body's combat power can be unleashed. Killing Qin Hui, a dog official, was Xiaoping's dream. It was so difficult to encounter this world bead, so how could Xiaoping miss it? And if you have been working in the Dianqian division, it would be too much. In history, Xuanhuan's failure to kill Qin Hui was due to lack of preparation. Of course Xiaoping would not make such a mistake, so it is better to withdraw from the Dianqian division first, so that he can have more time to prepare. The next day, Xiaoping did not go to the front office to report. When it was almost noon, someone came to see him. Xiaoping smashed a bowl of fast food at home, waved his sword and yelled, and killed the people who came to see him. I was shocked. Only 3 days later, the news that Xuanhuan, the envoy of the front division and the rear army, came home drunk and quarreled with ghosts and gods, and that he had become insane, had quietly spread throughout the palace division. Naturally, Such a person cannot continue to be on duty in the front department and the rear army, and accidentally make a big mistake. Therefore, the front department quickly asked Xuanhuan to retire due to illness and recuperate. In the past few days, Xiaopinggan has been breathing and practicing swordsmanship at home every day. His whole body has become stronger and stronger every day. After the palace secretary asked him to retire from illness and recuperate, Xiaopinggan simply sold the house in the city and found a secluded place in Qixia mountain outside Linan city. He lived in seclusion alone, practicing while preparing to assassinate Qin Hui. At this moment, Qin Hui is not as frightened as he was in the next few years, but he still has a guilty conscience. He knows that he has done many immoral things and offended many people. He is afraid of being retaliated, so every time he leaves the house to go to court in the morning, he always the proud man who was riding in the car was surrounded by more than 10 escort masters gathered by him. They were very careful when traveling, and it was difficult for casual people to approach him. Of course, that's just for ordinary people. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 894. Linan City is extremely quiet tonight. Even in this prosperous Linan City, usually at night, after high shi, the city is full of lights, and there are not many people left. Xiaopinggan had already entered the city yesterday and completed his final steps in the city. Qin Hui's current mansion was given to him by Emperor Jiaozong of the Song dynasty 5 years ago. Qin Hui's mansion is located in the political core area of Linan City. It is in the east of Linan City, east of Wangxian Bridge and west of Xinmenkai, a bustling marketplace. It is 2,000 meters away from the imperial city. Duomi, connected to Yuja. Every day, the team escorting Qin Hui to his morning court leave the palace and go directly to Yu Street, pass through Xinmenmen, Security Gate, Wangxian Bridge and then go straight to the palace. The morning time of the Southern Song dynasty was 5 days, that is, from 3 to 5 o'clock in the middle of the night. This time is incredible to modern people, but for the vast majority of people in ancient times who worked at sunrise and rested at sundown, this time but it's normal. Because the morning dynasty is very early, the officials who go to the dynasty usually leave their homes in the middle of the night. After arriving at the Taila courtyard, they will rest and eat in the Taila courtyard while waiting for the morning court time. Dailao is close to Xirenfang. Xirenfang is the Heman and the official offices of the 6 ministries, 3 provinces and pile sealing offices in Linan City. It is in front of the palace gate and next to the official offices of various ministries, because officials from the morning court gathered in Daila courtyard in the middle of the night. So there is a market with stalls outside the courtyard in the middle of the night, selling breakfast snacks and other things to fill the stomachs of officials. It was dark at 2 or 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. On the streets of Linan City, a group of people wearing various official uniforms held lanterns and mixed with a group of small vendors. It was like having a group supper outside the palace. It was Linan City of wonders. The most convenient place to assassinate Qin Hui is Wangxian Bridge. Xuanhuan assassinated Qin Hui at Wangxian Bridge, so Xiaopinggan also assassinated Qin Hui at Wangxian Bridge. At night, the river under Wangxian Bridge flows quietly, and there is a thin layer of mist on the water. A red lantern floated in the darkness from a distant street. When they reached Wangxian Bridge, the lantern's light illuminated the watchman's old face and slightly hunched body. In Linan City in January, the spring breeze had not yet passed, and the cold winter was not far away. In the middle of the night wind carried a biting cold air. The watchman was walking on the road, his body hunched and his hands retracted into his sleeves. The watchman in Linan City knocked the gong in his hand, letting the sound of the gong echo in the dark night, and then shouted in a hoarse voice, "It's an ugly moment, it's cold, freeze, prevent theft and theft." The watchman carrying a red lantern crossed Wangxian Bridge in the blink of an eye, not even noticing Xiaopinggan hiding under the bridge. Xiaopinggan has been hiding under the Wangxian Bridge for almost an hour. At this moment, Xiaoping'an was wearing a black nightsuit, with a Yufei's martial arts mask painted on his face. He was carrying a sharpened horse-cutting sword, a short knife at his waist, and a tactical vest. Inside, there are bulging bags containing the surprise he prepared for Qin Hui's dog thief. After the watchman left, Wangxian Bridge became deserted, with almost no one in sight. After about 10 minutes, the group finally appeared on the north side of Wangxian Bridge and were walking towards Wangxian Bridge. There were more than 30 people in the group. Some were holding signs, some were holding lanterns, some were responsible for clearing the way, and some were responsible for the rear. In the middle of the group was a sedan carried by 4 people. People on both sides of the sedan, in front and behind, were carrying them. The guards with swords and sticks and the dog legs under Qin Hui. In the entire Linen City, there was only one person who could be so loud and imposing in the morning, and that was Qin Hui. Qin Hui himself also knew that he was hated by others and was afraid of being retaliated by others, so he did not relax at all in his protection, and also recruited some capable people in the world to protect his safety. Looking at the massive battle in front of him, and thinking of the way Xuanhuan charged towards Qin Hui with one sword in anger, Xiaoping'an couldn't help but secretly shout, "What a good man!" In a short time, Qin Hui's team arrived at Wangxian Bridge. Qin Hui's proud son got on the bridge. He was thrown directly into the group of guards in front and behind the team. Boom! 2 balls of fire mixed with violent explosions exploded among the guards in front and behind Qin Hui's sedan chair at Wangxian Bridge. In the southern Song dynasty, the army actually already had gunpowder weapons, such as muskets and iron fireballs. The musket was the earliest prototype of a musket, and the iron fireball was the earliest grenade. However, the troops were rarely equipped. Moreover, all laws have institutional functions, and each law recites its text, but prohibits its transmission. Ordinary people rarely see it, and many people don't even know that such a thing exists. During this period, Xiaoping'an bought sulfur, saltpeter, charcoal, cotton wool and other raw materials to make grenades in the mountains. The grenades were only more powerful than the iron fireballs used by the court. The 2 iron lumps exploded, and Qin Hui's team was suddenly in chaos at Wangxian Bridge. People fell on their backs, and the guards guarding the front and back of Qin Hui's sedan were all killed and wounded. Ghosts were crying and wolves were howling, and their souls were terrified. The lanterns that fell on the ground were suddenly scattered. It burned like a fire, lighting up Wangxian Bridge. There is an assassin. A guard next to Qin Hui's sedan, who had seen the world, suddenly shouted, "Who is?" Full of anger, let the rain rest at the corner. Xiaoping'an, who had Yufei's face painted on his face, let out a long roar, holding a horse-killing sword in his hand, and rushed out of the darkness. In his mouth was Yufei's Manjianghong, and in this desolate night, the sound resounded in Wangxian Bridge. Ghost. Grandpa Yu is here to take revenge. Oh my God, Grandpa Yu is here. The power and fire of the 2 enhanced grenades exploded earlier, which scared many people in Qin Hui's team. They didn't know what they were, and some people thought it was God thundering. Now when they saw Xiaoping'an's blood-red face and angry eyes jumping out with a knife, and when they heard Manjianghong coming out from his mouth, they all screamed in fright, dropped everything in their hands, turned around and ran away. It's not that the people who followed Qin Hui didn't know Qin Hui's virtues and what he had done, but no one usually dared to mention these things in front of Qin Hui. The situation was different now. As soon as Xiaoping'an appeared, he immediately removed the person in everyone's mind. The mouth was torn open. In just an instant, the several sedan bearers in Qin Hui's team, the servants playing cards, and some guards dropped their things and ran away. In addition, those who had just been killed in the explosion among the guards who were knocked upside down by the explosion, only 7 or 8 people could stand in front of Qin Hui's sedan in an instant. Pretend to be a ghost. A guy with a horse face roared, drew his sword and rushed towards Xiaopinggan. Look up to the sky and roar, with strong ambitions. 30 years of fame and dust, 8,000 miles of clouds and moon. Xiaopinggan roared and sang, facing the rushing guard master, stepped out with one step, like riding a horse to attack. He slashed down the horse-cutting sword in his hand, directly cutting the charging dog's legs in two from head to toe, and cut the body open from the middle, leaving blood all over the ground. That guy is also a master, but in front of Xiaopinggan, he is not good enough. Xiaopinggan's sword was sharp and swift, full of evil energy, and scared away another guard who was standing in front of Qin Hui's sedan just now. Don't wait, the young man's head has turned white, and there is no sorrow. In the long song, Xiaopinggan's feet were like a swimming dragon, and his sword was like lightning. He rushed towards Qin Hui's sedan, slashed with two swords, and then two heads. Flying up, the dog's blood spilled into the river under the bridge. At this moment, Xiaopinggan is both Xuanhuan and Zheng. He is also a martial arts master who has experienced hundreds of battles. A horse-cutting sword is in his hand, opening and closing vertically and horizontally, like lightning flashing. Xiaopinggan has one sword and one sword. Rushed into the bodyguard masters beside Qin Hui, and for a while, flesh and blood flew everywhere. The shame of Jinkong has not yet fallen. The hatred of the ministers, when will it be destroyed? Driving a long chariot, trampling through the gap in the Helan Mountains. The ambition is to eat the meat of the Huns when hungry, and laugh and talk about drinking the blood of the Huns. Let's start over, clean up the old mountains and rivers, towards the sky. As soon as the word K fell, Xiaopinggan pulled out his sword from the mouth of a dogleg. He ducked to avoid the knife slashed by someone else. Xiaopinggan then turned around and kicked the dogleg in the chest with a spin kick. With the sound of the sternum shattering, the dog-legged guard was kicked until he vomited blood. He flew 3 meters upside down and fell into the river under Wangxian Bridge with a thud. Those who had been frightened and ran away before were still hesitant to come over. Seeing this, their faces turned pale with fright. They dropped their swords and sticks one by one, turned around and ran away. In less than a minute, there was no longer a living person standing in front of Qin Hui's sedan. Xiaopinggan opened the curtain of the sedan with his horse-killing sword, and saw that inside the sedan, Qin Hui, who was wearing the official uniform of the Prime Minister, was so frightened that he collapsed in the sedan. There was a lot of filth under him, and his feces and urine were frightened out. Qin Hui was originally guilty. The 2 grenades exploded just now, and the people outside the sedan were heard shouting that Yu Fei was coming, and the whole person was so scared that he became paralyzed and incontinent in the sedan. He is such a beast and a dog thief. He is as cruel and vicious as a wolf and a tiger in front of Yu Fei. He does not even have the courage to resist in front of the golden man, even worse than a dog. You are a dog thief. You are more cruel to the people and loyal ministers than anyone else. You are more cowardly than anyone else when it comes to your enemies. Even calling you a dog is an insult to a dog. I have wanted to kill you for a long time. Xiaopinggan cursed, not bothering to talk nonsense. As soon as he slashed out, he directly chopped off Qin Hui's head, grabbed it in his hand, and then used Qin Hui's Prime Minister's officer to wipe the blood off the sword. Inside the sedan, only Qin Hui's headless corpse and the sedan's dirty blood were left. Xiaopinggan, who was holding Qin Hui's head, ducked into the darkness and disappeared in the blink of an eye. At dawn, near the Jikyukong temple outside the Qiantang gate of Linan City, Xiaopinggan took Qin Hui's head and found the place where Wei Shun buried Yu Fei's body a few years ago. Qin Hui's head was placed in front of Yu Fei's grave. In addition, Xiaopinggan placed wine and lit incense in front of Yu Fei's grave to pay homage. As long as the national traitor dies, the national calamity will continue. That day I was Wei Shun who buried your bones here. Today I bring Qin Hui's head to commemorate you. Almost all the disasters in the Song dynasty were caused by the national traitor and the traitorous minister.
The national traitor and the traitorous minister are the Song dynasty the biggest threat and cancer. Ding said that until traitors like Cai Jing, Qin Hui and Jia Sidao die, the disasters of the Song dynasty will not stop. Killing traitors and traitors is to save the country. Killing traitors and traitors is to save the people. Warriors should use their swords and guns to save the country and cleanse away the filth. To save the country from fire and water, if Grandpa you has a spirit in heaven, please bless me to kill all the traitors and traitors who harmed you one by one, and bring peace to the people of the world. After Xiaopingan finished speaking, he spilled the wine in his hand on Yu Fei's tomb. Xiaopingan waited quietly. According to past experience, this Shi Quan's world bead was fused here. It was already a breakthrough fusion, and it should be almost over. However, Xiaopingan waited for a while and found that the world bead was not broken. Xiaopingan understood that the mission of this world bead was not over yet. There were still national thieves waiting for him to kill in Linen City. At this moment, Linen City was already in complete chaos. Qin Hui was the prime minister. Qin Hui was killed in Linen City. The people in Linen City rushed to tell each other as if it were a new year, and they were full of joy. Everyone was saying that Grandpa Yu appeared and showed up at Wangxian Bridge yesterday to kill Qin Hui. Then Wangxian Bridge was already surrounded by people who came early in the morning. Many people burned incense and worshipped at Wangxian Bridge. However, Qin Hui's accomplices who were hidden in the court felt like they were mourning for their heirs, and they were in panic all day long. The early court meeting was not completed at all. The atmosphere in the palace was also strange, and many people were frightened. In the palace, a man with a pale face and no beard was in the Jinluan palace. Hearing the news from his subordinates, his face turned pale and his body was trembling. Yu Fei appeared and killed Qin Hui. According to the living bodyguards and servants around Qin Hui, that man had a blood-red face and angry eyes. He was like a ghost. He was thunderous and fell to the ground as soon as he appeared. He was also singing Yu Fei's "The River is Red." He was as brave as Yu Fei, killing horses. There is no enemy under the sword, and now the whole Linen City is saying that Yu Fei appeared and killed Qin Hui, and took away Qin Hui's head. The official who reported the report also had a trembling voice. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 895. 2 months later, Hunan, Yuanzhou, Zhizhou Prefecture. The original name of Yuanzhou was Yizhou, and Emperor Shenzong issued an edict to build the city. The earliest Yuanzhou city was just an earthen city, with less than 100 households in the city. It was not until the reign of Emperor Jiaozong that Wang Changyuan, the magistrate of Yuanzhou, built the east, south, and northern cities. After that, Yuanzhou city was the prefectural magistrates Fang Gongfu and Linting successively built closed walls, and this small Yuanzhou city began to look a little better, but it was still a small city. Wang Qixi conspired with Qin Hui to kill Yu Fei. Later, after Wang Qixi failed to compete with Qin Hui for power in the court, he was demoted to Yuanzhou by Qin Hui. Qin Hui's demotion of Wang Qixi to Yuanzhou was actually a kind of humiliation, because this Yuanzhou was the place where Wang Qixi made his fortune. At that time, the bandit Cao Cheng caused chaos in the Jinghu area and looted wantonly. Wang Qixi fled the chaos in the Yuan and Xiang areas. Cheng Changjiao, who was in charge of Hunan's military affairs, saw that Wang Qixi still had some talents as a civil servant, so he asked Wang Qixi to temporarily take charge of Yuanzhou affairs. When the Cao bandits attacked the city of Yuanzhou, Wang Qixi gathered the rich and powerful people in the city and organized young and strong people to defend the city. Cao Chenju could not attack and retreated due to a shortage of food and grass. Wang Qixi made meritorious service and was appointed Hubei transit judge, and was changed to Ti. Point to Hubei prison. Yuanzhou is not as good as Linen City. Once it gets dark, Yuanzhou, which originally didn't have many people, is in darkness. There are only a few lights on,
and there are not many people in the narrow streets and alleys of the city. But today, the lights were still on in the backyard of the Yuanzhou government office. Wang Qixi, who was demoted as the magistrate of Yuanzhou, was currently in his study, lighting a lamp and looking at a letter he had just received. His hands were trembling and his face was extremely ugly, even filled with fear. At this moment, Wang Qixi is 67 years old, with snow-white temples and an old look. The hands holding the letter are already covered with many age spots, but his gloomy eyes can still see some of the viciousness and gloominess of the past. A person who looked like a master stood next to Wang Qixi. The master looked at the words on Wang Qixi's hand, took a breath of air, and changed his expression. The content of the letter was too horrifying. In just 1 month, Xuanhuan, the prime minister of the dynasty, was assassinated and had his head chopped off, and then Zhang Jun was also assassinated and had his head chopped off, but this was not the end of the story. The scary thing, the most scary thing, is that the letter said that the whole Linan city is now rumored that the person who killed Xuanhuan and Zhang Jun was Yu Fei, who had turned into a ghost. Some people said that he was a warrior in the Yu family army. The heads of the 2 men were found to be placed in front of a solitary grave near the Jikyukong temple outside Jiantang gate of Linan city as a memorial. The solitary grave was praised by the people of Linan, saying that Yu Fei was buried there. There are countless incense to worship. Because of the turbulent public sentiment in Linan city, even Emperor Jiaozong had to issue an order to honor Yu Fei and Yu Yunzheoxiu. He posthumously named Yu Fei Wumu and buried him with official honors. Later, I heard that Emperor Jiaozong shouted Yu Fei in his dream while sleeping in the palace. After waking up, he was frightened and fell into a serious illness. He has not been in court for more than half a month. If the death of these 2 people was not a big deal, then the death of Fu Zhenluma and the deputy chief of the infantry army Wang Gui made people take a breath of cold air. A few days after Xuanhuan and Zhang Jun were beheaded, Wang Gui in Fujian was found dead in his military tent. Wang Gui's death seemed to be suicide. He headed north. He knelt down, took off his armor, bit his fingers, wrote the words "I am guilty" on the ground with blood, and then committed suicide by committing seppuku. Wang Qixi had to be frightened because the people mentioned in the letter were all those who participated in framing Yu Fei. Wang Qixi was also the main participant in the original frame-up of Yu Fei. Xuanhuan had his head chopped off. Would it be his turn? Could it be that Yu Fei had really transformed into a ghost? Boom! Spring thunder exploded in the night sky outside the window, and the white light shone brightly outside the window. Wang Qixi was so frightened that his hand shook, and the letter he was holding fell to the ground. It started to rain outside at this time. Countless raindrops hit the eaves and tiles, and there was a rustling sound in the whole room. Sir, the theories of ghosts and gods are just the fiction of those foolish men and women. The master in the room forced a smile, and was beating a drum in his heart. Since Wang Qixi was demoted to Yuanzhou, he has followed Wang Qixi. Beside him, he also heard about what Wang Qixi did in Linan city. Okay, it's okay, you can go down. Wang Qixi calmed down and said in a hoarse voice, thieves have been rampant in the Yuan and Xiang areas recently. Let the police in the city pay attention to the activities in Yuanzhou tomorrow. Face, don't let go of any suspicious characters. If there are suspicious characters, they will be taken to jail first and then interrogated slowly. Yes, the master's heart trembled and he could only nod. Okay, you go out, I'll be alone for a while. Wang Qixi waved his hand. The master walked to the door of the study room and just opened the door. A thunder flashed across the sky outside, and then the lightning flash. The master suddenly saw a dark figure with a blood-red face and an angry look standing at the door of the study room. That figure's face was like a ghost, especially terrifying under the electric light. The moment he saw this figure, the master who had just said that there were no ghosts and gods in the world closed his eyes and remained silent. He fainted from fright and fell to the ground. Cold wind mixed with raindrops rushed in from outside the door.
Wang Kixi turned his head and saw a man holding a horse-killing sword and his face as red as a ghost stepping into the room amidst the thunder outside. "Ah, you!" Wang Kixi wanted to scream, but the man who stepped into the room looked at him like a sword. He came to him in just one step. With a wave of his sword, Wang Kixi's head flew away. He stood up, and the unspoken words that rushed to his throat stopped abruptly. Xiaopinggan grabbed Wang Kixi's dead-eyed head, turned around, and was about to step out of Yuan Zhou's his study. Thunder flashed in the sky outside again, and the world of Jizu shattered without warning. In the basement of number 169 Binhu Street, the bloody light cocoon on Xiaopinggan's body turned into countless light points and dissipated. Xiaopinggan finally opened his eyes and exhaled a long breath. Finally, the fusion is complete. The last Qi Quanja pearl increased the upper limit of divine power by a full 180 points. It was definitely a breakthrough fusion. Because of the additional 180 points of the upper limit of divine power, Xiaopinggan's divine bones increased by 2 to 14. Yes, Xiaopinggan's divine bones had reached 12 before and had advanced. Of the 30 boundary beads brought by Quinn L. Ahrens and Franco Petrarch, Xiaopinggan has already fused 29 of them, and only one has not been fused. The unfused boundary bead is Li Ji kills the snake. The reason why this world pearl Xiaopinggan did not fuse is because the protagonist of this world pearl, Li Ji, is a woman. This is a world pearl that only female summoners can fuse. The world of world beads is so strange. Women can fuse all world beads that can be fused by men, but male summoners cannot fuse some world beads that only women can fuse with. I don't know if Quinn L. Ahrens and Franco Petrarch didn't look carefully when they brought the world bead. I don't know if only women can fuse with this world bead, or if this world bead just has a corresponding one. Divine Mind Crystal, anyway, the final result is that Xiaopinggan has fused the 29 world beads they sent, and has added 13 new divine bones. Many of those world beads are perfectly integrated, and except for the Shi in addition to the world pearl, Xiaopinggan's breakthrough fusion was the Shenkuo world pearl. At this moment, Xiaopinggan is already a second-level 5-star God-favored person, and the available divine power in the secret mandala has reached a small peak, exceeding 2,000 points. Qi Quanja Pearl allowed Xiaopinggan to upgrade the assassin he summoned from the sinking star assassin to the 8th level Moonfall assassin. Looking at the divine power in his secret mandala, Xiaopinggan immediately eliminated other temptations and directly poured down 1,200 points of divine power. With a wave of his hand, the god of fortune boy appeared from the summoning door behind him and was summoned. The lucky boy wearing a red belly band jumped on Xiaopinggan's shoulders a few times and kissed Xiaopinggan on the face. The next second, he left the secret room in a flash and appeared outside the secret room, teasing the black dragon. Looking at the remaining 800 points of divine power, Xiaopinggan smiled slightly, shook his head, and walked out of the secret room. The god of fortune boy has no combat power, but his intelligence gathering ability is number 1 and irreplaceable. This is an ability that cannot be replaced with more combat power, so Xiaopinggan chose to summon the god of fortune boy. Opening the bookcase outside the secret room door, Long Wu had already walked over. "My lord, breakfast is already ready." Outside the study, the sun was shining brightly. It was already the next morning. The clock in the study had already pointed to 10 o'clock. The 29 world beads took Xiaopinggan almost 13 hours. Xiaopinggan didn't sleep last night, but the sudden increase in divine power made him energetic and he didn't feel tired at all. Well. Xiaopinggan nodded and walked towards the restaurant. It is convenient to have an aunt at home who cooks. Breakfast was porridge and steamed buns, which were kept warm in the kitchen. This morning's brandy daily was placed next to the dining table. Xiaopinggan was eating breakfast while reading brandy daily. The front page of the newspaper was still digging for materials from the Horror Wax Museum. Now the materials in the newspaper had been transferred to the accomplices. When Xiaopinggan turned to the back page of the newspaper, his eyes narrowed slightly. In the flour mill advertisement on the back page, Xiaopingan saw the hidden mission issued by Mr. Coin. The time of the mission is at 10 o'clock tonight, and the nature of the mission is a combat clearing mission. All combat equipment must be prepared. The meeting point for the mission is just outside the mangrove forest to the west of Kalanda. It should be that Korland's night watchmen have discovered clues to Life Mu Song. It's time for Operation Night Watch. Almost as Xiaopingan was reading the newspaper, Fu Shengtongzi smiled and disappeared into the villa in a flash. In the blink of an eye, he appeared outside the mangrove forest outside the city and began to search. This god of fortune boy was really summoned at the right time. If he had more divine power, Xiaopingan would like to summon the 8th level assassin to have a look. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 896. The night was dark, and several moons of different sizes hung in the sky, casting a cold and mesmerizing light. The mangroves to the west of Kalanda are closely adjacent to a swamp covering an area of hundreds of square kilometers. Under the moonlight, the mist in this swamp rises in the darkness, gradually covering the mangroves, and the night in the wind, except for the occasional chirping of insects and the hoot of owls in the night sky, there was silence in the swamp. A moonlight lizard in the swamp climbed onto the trunk of a mangrove tree. It opened its eyes wide and opened its mouth, facing the moonlight in the sky. It seemed to be enjoying the energy brought by the moonlight in the sky. Under the moonlight, the particles on the skin of the moonlight lizard's cuticle began to emit a dull brilliance, like tiny shining moonstones inlaid on its body, showing a strange beauty that was particularly obvious in the darkness. Suddenly, the moonlight lizard seemed to feel something. Just as it was about to escape from the tree, a gust of wind blew by, and in the rolling thick fog, the lizard suddenly turned into ice and was frozen on the tree trunk. In the surging mist, Xiaopingan, with a sterling silver angel mask on his face, a black mage robe on his body, and a pair of blood-red gloves on his hands, appeared here lightly, with a powerful aura on his body. This is the edge area of the mangrove. Several tall mangroves should have been struck by thunder many years ago. The trunks were separated from each other and were scorched black. Even the mangroves more than 10 meters nearby seemed to have been burned by the flames. There was no grass on the ground. In this mangrove forest, this place is very special and easy to find for summoners. Ajaluo, you're here. Mr. Coin's deep magnetic voice echoed in the mist. This voice was changed by the mask. It sounded mysterious and stressful. As this voice appeared, Mr. Coin, who was also wearing a black mage robe, a sterling silver angel mask and red gloves, had already walked out of the rolling thick fog. The angel mask worn by Mr. Coin has a slightly fatter face and looks slightly different from Xiaopingan's angel mask. Sir, I'm here. Xiaopingan nodded slightly to Mr. Coin. Xiaopingan's voice also changed, especially low, with a hint of metal sound. Mr. Coin's sharp eyes glanced at Xiaopingan, and he immediately felt something. Congratulations, Ajaluo, I didn't expect that you have become a second-level divine scroller so quickly. Those who have just experienced the ordeal of death understand better what strength represents. Since the opportunity has been placed in front of me, I will naturally seize it as soon as possible, Xiaopingan replied. Yes, the gods favor humble and diligent people. Let me ask, is there any news about the whereabouts of George the Skinned Butcher? Unfortunately, not yet, Mr. Coin shook his head. This man is cunning beyond imagination, and he has a lot of experience in avoiding the tracking of other divine scrollers. Is there any reward from the investigation bureau? Xiaopingan's eyes moved. Of course, discovering the whereabouts of George the Skinned Butcher will still reward you with 700 points of divine crystals. Where's the kill? 10 world beads, plus 3,000 points of divine crystals. The two of them had just chatted for a few words when the black mist rolled around them, and two more night watchmen wearing angel masks and red gloves appeared here almost at the same time and silently. The two new night watchmen, one is slightly taller than Xiaoping'an, with broad shoulders, carrying a huge blood-red crossbow behind him. The arms of the crossbow are as long as a person's open hands. Look. It looks extremely weird. There is also a night watchman. Judging from the figure, she should be a woman. The woman has long ice blue hair that looks particularly weird. It flashes magnificently under the moonlight and changes color. I don't know what it is. It is the effect of magic and disguise that is born like this. Mr. Coin, are there any new people joining tonight's mission? As soon as the man carrying the blood-red crossbow arrived, his eyes turned to Xiaoping'an and asked in a deep voice. This is Ajialuo, Corland's new night watchman, let's get to know each other. Mr. Coin introduced Xiaoping'an to the two people. Ajialuo cracked the case in the wax museum. After hearing Mr. Coin's introduction, the new night watchman looked at Xiaoping'an behind the mask and became a little more solemn. He nodded to Xiaoping'an, the wax museum has done a good job. You can call me Eagle. My name is Moonlight. The woman spoke concisely and looked very cold. Among the night watchmen, except for the convener like Mr. Coin who can know everyone's specific identity, no one is allowed to reveal their true identity and can only communicate with each other by code names and nicknames. Although everyone is dressed the same, for the summoner, as long as they meet each other once, they can know who the person is from the voice and body shape of the other person, and it is impossible to get confused. Underground deep in the mangroves, there is a secret church for gatherings built by Life Muge. Tonight, about half an hour later, several Life Muge mages and several Life Muge hidden in Kalanda will develop. The high-ranking members of Life Muge will hold a sacrificial ceremony in that church. Our task today is to enter the underground church of Life Muge and destroy them. No matter they are the mage of Life Muge or those high-ranking members, no one will be spared. Mr. Coin said coldly. The murderous aura in his body was like the blade of a knife beginning to unsheath in the dark night, making the surrounding air inexplicably cold. Understood. This is a mission resource, Mr. Coin said, and with a wave of his hand, 15 divine crystals floated towards the three of them, each with 5 divine crystals, which is 500 points of divine power. The night watchman is really generous. The process of issuing the magic crystal reminded Xiaoping'an of how the special forces distributed and received combat supplies before the battle. Xiaoping'an whispered in his heart, stretched out his hand, grabbed 5 divine crystals, and placed the 5 divine crystals in his spatial warehouse, ready for use at any time. Seeing the 3 people receiving the divine crystal, Mr. Coin stopped talking. With a wave of his hand, a leopard was summoned by Mr. Coin. The leopard glanced at the 3 people, then nimbly got into the mangrove forest and rushed towards the mangrove forest. The 3 people quickly followed. Mr. Coin, won't you join the action? Xiaoping'an asked the eagle next to him through a message as he quickly shuttled through the forest. No, he is responsible for command and support. Under normal circumstances, Mr. Coin does not participate in the battle. If something goes wrong, he will be the one to take the blame, Eagle said quickly through a message. Understood. After entering a few hundred meters into the mangrove, Moonlight waved his hand, and a large black python more than 10 meters long was summoned. The black python twisted its body, followed the leopard, and rushed towards the 3 men. People in front. The eagle was not idle either. When Moonlight summoned his own summoned object, with the eagle's wave of his hand, a sinking star assassin wrapped in black mist had already been summoned. With a strange flash of figure, Chen Seeing assassin had already rushed to the side of the leopard, looming next to the leopard, like a scout, clearing the obstacles on the road. Don't be reluctant to give up that little bit of divine power. Summon someone with strong combat power. It can be used for a longer time. Normal summons are consumed too quickly. If you perform such a task once,
you might even lose money. Eagle glanced at Xiaopingan and warned. Xiaopingan didn't say anything, he just pointed to the ground in front of him, and a black vine of the magic vine popped out from the ground with a hiss, and then shrank under the ground again. At this moment, Xiaopingan doesn't have much divine power to use, so Xiaopingan is going to save some money. In fact, in addition to the magic vine, the god of fortune is also beside Xiaopingan at the moment, but Mr. Coin and the others can't notice it at all. Even if he cannot directly participate in the battle, the role that Fu Shenboi can play is like a super early warning aircraft in air combat, and its value is definitely far greater than those summoned objects that can participate in the battle. The combination of Magic Vine and Lucky God Boy is enough to cope with most situations. After marching for several miles through the mangroves, the three of them had reached the center of the forest. The leopard leading the way had entered a small hill filled with dense fog. At this moment, the sinking star assassin summoned by the eagle had already joined the enemy. As the sinking star assassin's figure flashed, a crow hidden on a branch was struck by a hand stretched out from the darkness. The dagger pierced through and suddenly turned into a point of light and dissipated. The crow was placed here by the mage of Shengxing Muj as a guard and sentry. As soon as the Shengxing assassin took action, it meant that everyone had been discovered, and the battle with the mage of Shengming Muj had officially begun, and tonight's battle officially began. Almost at the same time, the leopard rushed to a big tree surrounded by 5 people and roared filial piety to the tree. Without saying a word, the eagle took out the giant crossbow on his back and shot an arrow at the big tree. A ray of red fire shot out from the giant crossbow, and with a bang, the giant tree was completely shattered and collapsed. On the ground under the giant tree, a dark hole was revealed. The hole was obviously built by people, and there were steps. At this time, screams were heard below the entrance of the cave. Black magic vine branches emerged from the ground first, and 2 people were guarding the entrance of the cave. They were wearing strange white robes and armor, and there was still life on the robes. The throat of the person marked by Muj was pierced. The 2 men were equipped with long swords and pistols. They should be the minions of Life Muj, guarding the gate of the cave. After piercing the 2 people, the vines of the magic vine wrapped around the turntable on the door and opened the locked door from the inside. Then, the black giant python summoned by the moonlight dived directly into the hole, opened its bloody mouth and rushed inside. The Shengxing assassin also jumped down from the tree in an instant, and rushed into the hole in the next second. There was a scream from the underground cave. The 3 night watchmen quickly followed and rushed underground. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 897. In the spacious underground passage, the green fluorite gives off a faint light, and the roots of the tangled mangroves are strangely and neatly arranged in the passage, like exquisite works of art and like supports in the mine to prevent the tunnel from collapsing. All of this is of course not the result of natural growth, but the result of the magic. When ordinary people enter such a place, they will inevitably be impressed by the uncanny power of this magic. No one could have imagined that a cult like Life Muj would actually establish such an evil underground church in the woods on the outskirts of Kalanda. The magic vine, the big snake, and the assassin rushed at the front, followed closely by Xiaopingan, looking brave and fearless, leaving the eagle and moonlight behind. Along the passage, most of the corpses of low-level members of the cult, such as Sheng Muj, were stabbed to death by magic vines. The vines of the magic vine that emerge from the ground are like spears and arrows thrust out of the ground. They can be as hard as iron, fast and fierce, and difficult to resist. They are also like the body of a wild python, which can twist and change flexibly, and can turn its fangs at any time. It penetrated into the vital parts of the bodies of those cult members, and pierced through the human body with a sneer. The cult members guarding the Life Muj here heard the movement outside and rushed out from inside, trying to break out and block the intruders coming in from the outside, but they happened to bump into the hands of the magic vine. The ability of the magic vine is both fatal and defenseless for these ordinary low-level cult members. In the dark green passage, the magic vine appears and appears. While stabbing these people to death, it will also absorb their blood and energy. It was empty, so the faces of the people who were stabbed to death by the magic vines all turned pale, their bodies were shriveled, and their death patterns were a bit strange. Bang, bang, bang. This is the devil. Ah! Gunshots, screams and horrified shouts echoed in the passage. Those who wanted to rush out of the passage, faced with the terrifying magic vines that could drill out from any place in the passage, shot at random with red eyes, terrified, but in the blink of an eye, inside the passage, the light was chaotic and disturbed, and the vines pierced through from all sides of the passage, piercing their bodies like sieves and rags, and leaving them on the ground, lifeless. Most of those bullets fired randomly hit the ground and soil. Even if 2 of them hit the magic vine, they could recover in the blink of an eye due to the growth characteristics of the magic vine. In such an underground passage, the combat power of the magic vine can be maximized, almost turning the underground passage into a meat grinder. This guy named Agialuo is braver than I thought, and the death vine he summoned is not bad either. I don't have to worry about this guy being afraid of death and holding him back. Watching Xiaopinggan rush to the front, Eagle Xuanhuan and Yue Guang also murmured. The vine of death he summoned seems a little too powerful. I have seen the vine of death summoned by someone before, but it doesn't seem to be as powerful as his. Yue Guang also said with some confusion. Maybe there is some secret blessing. Eagle guessed. There is only one reason why Xiaopinggan rushed to the front. These garbage deserve to die, and if he kills these garbage, the giant tower in his secret confession will be rewarded with divine power, and at the same time, he can also drive the souls of these garbage into in the divine prison. If they pay the price, they can pry out some useful information from the mouths of these garbage. It is for this reason that Xiaopinggan rushed to the front. In just a moment, Xiaopinggan, following the giant snake and assassin in front, was the first to pass through the underground passage behind him and enter a hall. This hall is deep underground, covering an area of thousands of square meters. The dense roots of mangroves and blocks of grey granite construct this hall. In the center of the hall, there is a blood pool. They rushed in too fast. When Xiaopinggan rushed in, there were still several people soaking naked in the blood pool in the hall, performing some kind of mysterious ritual. Because of Xiaopinggan's sudden appearing and screaming and gunshots coming from the passage, these people were scrambling to crawl out of the blood pool in a panic. A group of people, both men and women, with bare buttocks, ugly bodies covered in red liquid, and fat buttocks trembling and screaming, rushed out of the pool of blood. To be honest, Xiaopinggan felt a little sick when he saw those people crawling out of the blood pool. He felt like he saw some man-eating beasts crawling out of the blood pool. Xiaopinggan knew with just one sniff that the blood in the blood pool was human blood. Those who provided blood have all turned into skeletons, which are inlaid on the walls around the hall, showing the connection and gap between life and death. When they saw the mask on Xiaopinggan's face and the blood-red gloves on his hands, those people screamed in horror. Night Watchman. The dagger in the assassin's hand flashed with light, and the heads of several people running around flew up. The giant python opened its mouth wide and spit out a stream of flames, burning the 2 people into ashes. It flicked its tail and slapped a fat man on the body, smashing all the bones of the man into pieces and hitting the hall heavily. The walls almost turned into meat patties. The magic vine was much more direct. With a hissing sound, it emerged directly from the blood pool, pierced a few people who had not climbed out of the blood pool, and sank into the blood pool with a scream. Mr. Coin's order is not to let go of any of these rubbish. In addition to those soaking in the blood pool, there were 4 summoners of life music in the hall who were wearing blood-red mage robes and pointed hats, covering their entire faces. The 4 summoners of life music were performing rituals here just now using secret techniques. They didn't expect Xiaopingen and the others to rush in so quickly, and they were caught off guard. The blue water shield light waves on Xiaopingen's body flashed, the lightning crackled on his hands, and the five thunder technique was simultaneously released by Xiaopingen. The water shield withstood several incoming fireballs, ice picks, and poisonous smoke. The electric light on Xiaopingen's hand, like a flashing spiritual snake, directly hit the summoner of life Musang, piercing through that. The water shield on the person's body made the person's body smoke, and the mage's robe was shattered by the electricity and flew upside down. The magic vine emerged from the ground, and before the summoner of life Muj could land on the ground, the magic vine had already penetrated the body of the summoner of life Muj in the air. At this time, the power of the Chen-Seeing assassin was revealed. In just a flash of his body, the Chen-Seeing assassin appeared behind a summoner of life Muj. He passed through a fire net, and the dagger pierced through that person with a sneer. Summoner's heart. At the same time, the giant crossbow in Eagle's hand emitted a red light, once again blasting to pieces a summoner of life Muji who wanted to escape and several dark figures that the summoner had just summoned. Of the four summoners of life Musang, only one was left in the blink of an eye. The summoner turned around and wanted to run away. With a flick of the moonlight, the summoner discovered that the ground under his feet had turned into a quagmire, and his figure was immediately trapped. The next second, Xiaopingen's ice cone shattered a water shield on his body. Shen-Seeing's assassin killed several skeletons summoned by the summoner. Moonlight took action again, and an ice ring melted the fireball blasted by the summoner. Under the siege of several night watchmen, the summoner of life Muj could not hold on at all. He also knew that it was the most dangerous moment. He roared and actually cut off a leg that was stuck in the mire. The man jumped up from the ground and wanted to rush out through a passage. At this moment, the golden lotus under Xiaopingen's feet flashed, and he appeared directly next to the summoner of life Muj through a space of more than 20 meters. He intercepted the man in the air and waved his long sword. With a sneer, he cut off the summoner's head with one sword. Before the summoner's body had even hit the ground, another beam of red light flew from the giant crossbow in Eagle's hand, blasting his body into pieces. But in this moment, only Xiaopingen and the other three were standing in the secret underground hall of life Muj, and all the other cult members were killed. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 898. In a moment, the underground secret hall of life Muj was filled with blood, corpses everywhere, and a mess. There were only 3 night watchmen standing in the entire secret hall, looking around. The giant python was swimming around the 3 of them, and the Chen-Seeing assassin was quickly checking the corpses. Xiaopingen's magic vines were completely hidden underground, as if they had never appeared before. This is why the night watch makes people fearful. In a place, when the night watch appears, it often means killing and the end. A total of 35 people. Eagle looked around the secret hall, his deep voice echoing behind the silver mask, 4 red and black mages of life Muji, 21 low-level guards of life Muji, plus 10 lives Muj's newly recruited lurker members. We have gained a lot from this operation. This is the biggest blow to the life Muj cult in Brandy province in the past 2 years. Red and black mage, Xiaopingen looked at the corpses on the ground, his tone slightly doubtful. This is the level within life Muj, equivalent to the first level of divine scrolls. Those low-level guards are the thugs and minions for the development of life Muj, and the lurkers are the secret members of their development, Yue Guang explained. After experiencing the battle just now, she now regards Xiaopingen as a trustworthy companion. After we leave, people from the investigation bureau will come to take over this place and determine the true identities of these people in reality. The lurkers developed by life Muj are the most destructive. These lurkers are not mages and have no special abilities. But once they are controlled by life Muj, they will become time bombs. In a few years the water pipe poisoning incident in the former Das Alt city was done by the lurkers of life Muj. In one poisoning, more than 20,000 people in a city were poisoned and died, and they became their sacrifices. Eagle, he spoke in a low voice. Wait a minute, my summon seems to have discovered something. There is a passage under the blood pool. Xiaopingan suddenly frowned and looked in the direction of the blood pool. Boom! Mud suddenly flew up on the ground, and countless magic vines came out from the ground. They opened their teeth and claws, and drilled a huge hole in the ground next to the blood pool. Under the hole, there was another secret passage. Moonlight waved his hand, and a butterfly flashing with silver brilliance was summoned. The butterfly immediately flew into the secret passage, danced gracefully, and flew towards the depths of the secret passage. There was someone in the secret passage just now. Yue Guang's voice turned cold. It must be the missionary mage of life Muj, Eagle said. The assassin he summoned had already rushed into the underground passage, and the giant python summoned by Moonlight also followed. The eagle was about to follow the python into the secret passage when he was stopped by Xiaopingan. If the preaching mage of life Muj had just escaped from here, he would have done something in the secret passage to prevent us from entering the secret passage. Chase, be careful to fall into his trap, let's go from above. Not bad, Eagle nodded, what you said makes sense. The three of them did not delay, and just let their summons chase them through the secret passage. The three of them quickly returned the same way, rushed out of the tree hole they had just blasted, and continued their pursuit in the mangroves. The three of them had just chased more than 200 meters on the ground when they heard a rumbling sound like thunder coming from the ground. The ground in the forest in front suddenly bulged up into a large area, and then collapsed again, and even the ground was covered with water. You can feel a strong vibration. The three of them all had their summons underground, so they naturally understood what happened in the underground passage. A violent explosion had just occurred in the underground passage. There were explosives buried underground that were detonated, or perhaps the missionary mage of life Musong had mastered it. A similar explosion technique directly collapsed the passage. Fortunately, at the moment when the explosive exploded, Xiaopingan's magic vine grabbed a large piece of soil from the ground and sealed the passage, so that the assassin and the giant python behind were not seriously injured. Only the spiritual butterfly just summoned by Moonlight was there. Destroyed in explosion. Eagle's expression changed. There is indeed a trap. If the three of them had gone down just now, they might have been buried underground this time. My death vine is fine, I can still track it along that underground passage. Xiaopingan said, and chased directly in a direction in the forest. Eagle and Moonlight followed behind him, and the two summoned the giant snakes and assassins could only follow after turning back from the passage. In fact, the one who really tracked the escaped master Muj of life was not the magic vine, but the god of fortune boy. The boy of the god of fortune had already focused on that person and discovered that the person had used the explosion technique in the passage, so Xiaoping and Eagle and Moonlight were just reminded to walk off the ground. At this moment, just 1,000 meters away from Xiaopingan and the others, at the intersection of the forest and the swamp, a figure covered in black air stood on the edge of the swamp, looking at the direction in which Xiaopingan and the three of them were chasing, eyes filled with emotion. Hangang moved and waved his hand, and a black mist appeared behind him. Then, there was a buzzing sound in the black mist, and a large black and highly venomous killer bee flew out of the black mist. After they dispersed, they rushed towards the direction of Xiaopingan and the others. The next second, the black figure turned around, and like a ball of black sewage, he sank directly into the swamp behind him and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. However, the black shadow was never noticed. The lucky boy had been sitting on his head and disappeared with him. This is another cave entrance. Xiaopingan, with Eagle and Moonlight, discovered the hidden exit of the passage in another tree hole, but there was no one here. The Moonlight summoned a shining spirit butterfly again, and the spirit butterfly flew towards the swamp. The giant python and assassin summoned by the Moonlight and the Eagle also caught up with everyone at this time. Half a minute later, Xiaopingan and the others met the swarm of killer bees in the forest. The first person to discover the killer bees was the assassin summoned by the eagle. The moment he discovered the killer bees, the assassin's dagger had already sprinkled cold stars in the air, and 5 or 6 poisonous killer bees suddenly turned into light and disappeared. "Be careful, these are highly venomous killer bees," the eagle said in a deep voice. With a wave of his hand, several ice picks flew out and smashed several more killer bees into pieces in the air. There are a lot of these highly venomous killer bees, at least thousands of them. They are like an army, with tactics, and they can use the terrain of the forest to hide themselves. Moreover, these highly venomous killer bees do not swarm when they attack people. Instead, they attacked one by one from all directions, forcing everyone to deal with them. Xiaoping'an used a water shield to protect himself, and took out his long sword to slash the killer bees that were approaching him. At this moment, Xiaoping'an knew very well that the missionary mage of life Musong had already escaped into the swamp area and had long since run away. Killing a killer bee with a fireball or an ice pick is definitely a loss in terms of the consumption of divine power. It will consume a lot of human divine power, and the killing speed with other methods is slow, but in the face of the attacks of these summons, you can't just ignore it. If you accidentally get stung, it could be fatal. Therefore, it took the 3 of them 7 or 8 minutes to completely clean up these poisonous killer bees. When the spirit butterfly summoned by the moonlight led everyone to the edge of the swamp, the spirit butterfly had lost all traces of the preaching mage of life music and was just spinning around the water. What appeared in front of everyone's eyes was a large area covered in thick water. The endless swamp shrouded in fog is a place where it is almost impossible to search once the target is lost. Moonlight waved her hand and took back the spirit butterfly. "Damn it, let him run away." Eagle slapped her palms hard. Xiaoping'an looked at the swamp and said nothing. That guy was a bit difficult to deal with. He was still hiding in the swamp. If he wanted to lead everyone to find him, he would expose the ace card of the god of fortune. But he didn't expose it yet. When playing a trump card, the 3 of them can only return. This mission ends here. The 3 of them returned to the underground secret hall of SummoningMagic. After cleaning up, they unexpectedly found something. 6 world beads were found in the luggage of a corpse in the underground secret hall. According to the rules of the night watchman, half of the 6 boundary beads were handed over to Mr. Coin, and the remaining 3 were divided among the 3 people involved in the operation, which was regarded as an unexpected gain from this mission. The boundary bead that Xiaoping'an was randomly assigned had 4 small seal characters on it, an XI and XI and Dharma. Xiaoping'an was shocked when he saw this world bead, because this method is one of the treasures left by Patriarch Bodhidharma in China. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 899. The world bead you got is one of the most difficult to fuse. Those who fail to fuse will either be completely insane and become madmen, or their heads will explode like detonators. The preaching mage of life Musong. The reason why I got this world bead and didn't fuse it is because the risk of fusing this world bead is too great. Before leaving, Mr. Coin seriously told Xiaoping'an, for your safety, before you get the Divine Mind Crystal, it's best not to fuse this world bead easily. You still have a long way to go in the future, only the patient scroll master can go further. Okay, I understand, Xiaoping'an nodded, and then asked, what techniques can you master after fusing this world bead? This world bead can master powerful mental spells, which can eliminate the effects of all negative mental spells including demons, hypnosis, puppetry, divine control, evil spirit possession, etc. It also has a powerful blessing effect. It allows people to regain clarity of mind and freedom of mind under any circumstances. At this point, Mr. Hidden turned his head and looked in the direction of the city. Well, the people from the investigation bureau will be here soon. I can see that Eagle and Moonlight have a very high evaluation, so there should be no problem with your cooperation in the future. I just did what I was supposed to do. Yes, we all did what we should do. Many tragedies in this world are that many people don't know what they should do. Take a good rest for 2 days. The night watchman will not have any more tasks in a short time. Xiaopingan nodded, and then saw Mr. Coin's figure turn into a ball of mist and slowly disappear in front of his eyes. Yingying and Yueguang had already left after taking the boundary beads, as neatly as if they clocked in on time after get off work, without any nonsense. The mangroves shrouded in thick fog were quiet and deserted again. Apart from the low chirping of insects, there was no other sound. No one knew that just now, the night watchman had a bloody battle with a group of cultists here, destroying with the establishment of a cult stronghold, a huge crisis hidden in Coreland was eliminated, and some dirty and harmful poisonous insects were quietly eliminated. Xiaopingan looked up at the moonlight in the sky, then at his blood-red gloves, and suddenly felt something in his heart. Maybe, this is the meaning of the existence of the night watchman, to step into the darkness, protect the light, and embrace the blood, leave peace behind. The sound of birds flapping their wings came. The messenger in green had flown down from the sky and stood on Xiaopingan's shoulders, combing his feathers. Someone is coming, someone is coming. Xiaopingan smiled slightly, and his figure gradually disappeared into the thick fog. More than 10 minutes later, Xiaopingan, who had resumed his normal appearance, walked out of the shadowed alley and appeared outside a tavern in a town more than 3,000 meters away from the mangrove forest. Longwu drove a carriage and was waiting by the roadside. There were lights and noise coming from inside. Anyone who saw the carriage would think that the driver was waiting for someone in the tavern. Seeing Xiaopingan's arrival, Longwu opened the car door for Xiaopingan. After Xiaopingan got in the car, Longwu drove the carriage towards the city. It's convenient to have your own carriage. You don't have to run back to Binhu Street in the middle of the night. Xiaopingan, who got on the carriage, touched the mind of Heilong, who was waiting quietly in the carriage, and smiled. He took a look at the giant tower in his secret mandala. The newly added divine power on the giant tower was a full 981 points. Plus the 500 divine crystal points given to him by Mr. Coin, the divine power points gained from this mission were 1,481 points, and with less than 60 points of divine power consumed, plus the more than 800 points of divine power available in the previous secret mandala, Xiaopingan's available divine power at this moment once again reached more than 2,200 points. At the same time, there are 26 more members of Life Muj in the divine prison of the giant tower. These people have not yet been interrogated. After the interrogation, if all the old records of these people can be cleared away, there may be new gains. Coupled with the world beads of Patriarch Bodhidharma's Angzan method and the whereabouts of the preaching mage of life music who was targeted by the god of fortune, this mission will make a lot of money. Xiaopingan is in a good mood. By the time Longwu drove the carriage back to Binhu Street, it was already late at night. Except for the street lights, there was no one on the street. The sound of the wheels of the four-wheeled carriage turning gurglingly on the road was extremely clear. Longwu went to park the carriage, and the magic vine quietly emerged from the flower bed on the roadside. The ant guarding the house was not asleep yet. The light in the living room of the villa was still on. When she heard the sound coming from outside, the ant had already turned on the light. At the door of the villa, the messenger in green flapped his wings and flew into the house, and the black dragon followed him into the house. Auntie has prepared water for the summoned object, and at the same time prepared a bowl of noodles for Xiaopingan as a late-night snack. Eating the fragrant noodles, Xiaopingan suddenly felt that this kind of life was quite good, much better than him alone. This was the life a summoner should live. After finishing the noodles, Longwu, who had arranged the carriage and horses, also came in. After talking to Longwu, Xiaopingan entered the underground secret room, preparing to fuse the world bead of Bodhidharma he had just obtained.
Without the divine mind crystal, it would be impossible for others to fuse this world bead of Angzan's method, but for Xiaopingan, it would not be difficult for him to fuse this world bead. At that time, because there was a Mahayana atmosphere in China, Bodhidharma traveled eastward and traveled thousands of miles to China to preach the Dharma and became the first ancestor of Zen. The Angzan Dharma left by Bodhidharma was what gave Huike, the second group of Zen sects, an epiphany. The mental method is the fundamental method of Chinese Zen. Zen Buddhism is a treasure at the pinnacle of Chinese civilization and culture, and it has established itself in the world. Therefore, this world bead is of great significance to Xiaopingan, allowing him to transform into the founder of Bodhidharma and leave behind the secrets of Zen. In the secret room, after the blood dripped, Xiaopingan's whole body was surrounded by a faint cocoon of illusory light in the blink of an eye. When Xiaopingan opened his eyes, he found that he was sitting cross-legged in a simple cave. In front of him, there was a boulder. There was a faint shadow on the boulder. The image of the shadow was just like him. The image of sitting cross-legged is the same. Looking at the environment in front of him, Xiaopingan knew that this was the cave at the top of the northwest mountain of Songshan Mountain. Bodhidharma came here and stayed here for 9 years, leaving his own shadow directly on the stone wall of the cave. As his spiritual consciousness recovered, Xiaopingan saw without turning around, he saw the mountains and rivers outside the cave covered in silver, the cold wind howling, and a monk in single clothes kneeling devoutly in the snow outside the cave. The snow was waist deep, and his eyebrows were frozen, like a piled-up snowman, motionless. The person kneeling outside the cave is Huik. I wish everyone a healthy Dragon Boat Festival. Golden Summoner. Author, Zyu. Chapter 900. At this moment, Huik is not called Huik, but Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan has been a monk for many years. He is proficient in Mahayana and Hinayana Buddhist teachings. He lectures on sutras everywhere and is already a very famous monk. Xuanhuan knew that Bodhidharma's Buddhist realm was higher than his own, so he wanted to ask for help and had been kneeling outside the cave for many days. Xiaopingan got up, walked out of the cave, stepped on the snow, and walked in front of the divine light. When the divine light in the snow heard the movement, he opened his eyes and found that Patriarch Bodhidharma was already standing in front of him. You have been standing in the snow for a long time, what do you want to ask for? Xiaopingan asked. Xuanhuan shed tears, clasped his hands and saluted Patriarch Bodhidharma. I only hope that the Master will be merciful, open the gate of nectar, widen the circle of disciples, accept me as a disciple, and teach me the Dharma. Xiaopingan said, the supreme and wonderful way of all the Buddhas has been hard-working for a long time. It is difficult to practice it, but it cannot be endured without patience. How can you use small virtues, small wisdom, carelessness, and arrogance, hoping for the true vehicle, and work in vain? Today, there is heavy snow in the sky. They are all white. You want me to accept you as my disciple, unless it snows red. Note 1. As soon as Xiaopingan finished speaking, he saw the divine light kneeling on the ground. He gritted his teeth, stood up abruptly, grabbed his sword in the snow, took it out of the scabbard, and cut off his left arm with a single blow, drawing blood. Direct spray. Xuanhuan took his severed left arm and sprinkled the blood in the air, dyeing the snowflakes red, then dropped the knife and arm, panting, sweating profusely, and his face was as red as blood, and knelt on the ground again. The sky is gone falling. Hunxuo, please ask Master to accept me as your disciple. Witnessing with his own eyes the scene of Bodhidharma and Huike, the first ancestor of Zen Buddhism, Xiaopingan also sighed in his heart. Huike's great wisdom and courage in seeking the Dharma were so tenacious and courageous that ordinary people could not imagine. Xiaopingan put a little bit on Huike's body to stop the bleeding from his broken arm, and said to Huike, okay, I will accept you as my disciple. You will be my disciple from now on. I will give you a Dharma name, and you will be called Huike. When Huike heard this,
he seemed to have forgotten the pain of breaking his arm. His face showed joy and he said to Bodhidharma, "Hwick has met the master. What do you want to ask for?" Hwick said, "Since I met the master, I realized that my understanding of Buddhism was too shallow in the past and I felt uneasy. Please give me peace of mind, master." Xiaopingan shook his head and smiled, looked directly at Hwick, and said slowly, "Take your heart out, and I will feel at ease for you." Hwick suddenly froze, as if he was touched. After a while, he said bitterly, "You can't find your heart. I have put your heart at ease." In the heavy snow, Hui Ke was stunned for a moment. He felt that the moment was suddenly quiet, and he had no thoughts. He could not think of the past, could not think of the next, and could not stand in between. This vast white world was just like his own at the moment. In my state of mind, all my thoughts are like snow, and it is still when I fall to the ground. I only feel that everything in my heart is like snow, but it is illusory. In the end, it is white, but my heart is calm like never before. Xiaopingan immediately spoke, and with a little help from Hui Ke, he said, "When people are confused, they chase the Dharma, and when they are confused, they chase the Dharma. When they are confused, their consciousness captures form, and when they are confused, color captures their consciousness. But those who have the intention to differentiate and care about the actual amount of their own minds, all of them are this is a dream. If the conscious mind is silent and there is no place for thoughts, this is called perfect enlightenment." After hearing the wonderful teachings, Hwick was shocked again and asked, "How can I realize it from my own mind?" Xiaopingan replied, "Seeing that all dharmas exist, they do not exist by themselves, and they are calculated by their own minds to exist. None. And if people commit all sins and see their own dharma king, they will be liberated. If those who understand it through actions have strong energy, and those who see the dharma through actions, they will not lose their thoughts everywhere. If they understand through words, their energy will be weak, and they will see the dharma in the matter. Deep. From your various fortunes, you can't get out of the dharma realm. If you use the dharma realm to enter the dharma realm, you are a fool. Whatever you do, your mind will not leave the dharma realm. Why? The mind-body is the dharma realm." Hwick asked again, "With all the knowledge in the world, why can't they be enlightened?" "Because I see myself, I don't know the way, I am the self. The perfect person does not worry about suffering, and does not rejoice when he encounters happiness. Because he does not see himself, he does not know pain and joy. Because he loses himself, he gets nothingness, he respects himself. If you die, what else is there that doesn't die? If the Dharma is empty, who can practice Taoism? Who needs to practice Taoism? If there is no such person, there is no need to cultivate the Tao. That person is also me. If there is no self, right and wrong will not arise when things are encountered. What is, I am, and things are not right, what is not is me. Self non-being means that things are not non-non, that is, the mind has no mind, which is the way to reach the Buddha, that is, things cannot be seen, which is called reaching the way. When things are directly seen and know their origins, this person's wisdom eyes are open. A wise man allows things but not himself, that is there is no choice and disobedience. When a fool allows himself to ignore things, there is choice and disobedience. Not seeing a thing is called seeing the way, not doing anything is called walking the way. There is no intention in everything, that is, there is no place to do anything. There is no way to do it, that is see the Buddha. If you see the image, you will see ghosts everywhere. If you take the image, you will fall into hell. If you observe the Dharma, you will be liberated. If you see and remember the difference, you will receive the wok, soup, stove, charcoal and other things, and you will see the appearance of life and death. If you see the Dharma realm, nature is the nature of nirvana. No distinction between memories and forms is the nature of the Dharma realm. The mind is not a form, so it does not exist. It is used but not wasted, so it is not non-existent. It is always empty when used, so it is not non-existent. It is empty and often used, so it is not non-existent. Seeing that Huic seemed to have realized it, Xiaoping'an said directly, the heart of the heart is hard to find. When it is wide, it pervades the Dharma realm. When it is narrow, it does not allow for needles. It does not see evil and resents it. It does not observe the good but works diligently. It also does not give up. Wisdom is close to foolishness. It is also enlightened without being deluded. To reach the great road, it is too much. To understand the Buddha's heart, it is to be saved. It is not the same as ordinary saints. The transcendent name is called ancestor. Note 2. As soon as Xiaoping'an finished speaking this poem, Huike and the surrounding heaven, earth, mountains and rivers simultaneously shone brightly and merged into one, and the entire world of Jizu was shattered. In the secret room, Xiaoping'an's qi and divine power surged, and a divine bone appeared on his head again. The Yangzhen method world beat just now directly increased Xiaoping'an's upper limit of divine power by 99 points. It was just enough to add a new divine bone, bringing the number of divine bones in Xiaoping'an's body to 15. The whole person was in the second another small step up the level. As long as 3 more divine bones are added, Xiaoping'an can enter the ranks of the third-level divine scroll user. The increase in divine bones means that the body becomes stronger and the effect of spellcasting increases. In addition, Xiaoping'an's secret mandala also has a golden statue of Bodhidharma and Huike when they taught the Dharma. The piece of mind magic on this statue requires exactly 99 points of divine power to be used once. It's only been less than 5 minutes. If there are 99 such world beads, I can become a god in one day. Xiaoping'an looked at his watch and smiled slightly, but, this kind of thing, I can only think about it. However, this world bead reminded Xiaoping'an of his luck. Among the 6 world beads he got today, the one he picked out by luck should be the one that can provide the highest limit of divine power among the 6 world beads. Pellets. Seeing that there was still a lot of time, Xiaoping'an directly entered the divine prison of the giant tower. In the cells of the divine prison, there were 26 more souls screaming and wailing in the cells. Some of the figures of these souls were being burned by flames, some were being stabbed by swords, and some were being skinned and gouged. The torture of their hearts, in each cell, revealed the crimes they had committed in their lives. Those crimes were indeed heinous, all kinds of killings, poisoning, evisceration, skinning and bleeding, adultery, blood sacrifices, and cannibalism. So many that it's hard to look straight at. To interrogate these people one by one, Xiaoping'an felt that it was too spoiling his appetite and a waste of time. There were more than 20 people here. It would take him at least a day to get useful information after interrogating them one by one in detail. If you have this little time, you might as well take a nap or do something else, why waste it with these scum? It would be great if there was a jailer in this divine prison to help him interrogate these people. Xiaoping'an thought this, and suddenly his heart moved, and he came to Sijiskanal's cell. Sijiskanal was still enjoying the fire in the cell. When he saw Xiaoping'an appearing outside the cell, Sijiskanal suddenly shouted, "Ah, God, save me, I repent, I beg for your mercy and forgiveness, ah!" In the screams of Sijiskanal, his soul was annihilated again, and he was reborn again to accept the punishment, and so on endlessly. Xiaoping'an waved his hand gently, and the flames in the cell disappeared. Sijiskanal knelt on the ground and looked at Xiaoping'an in disbelief. This divine prison needs a jailer. If you become a jailer, you can avoid being burned by the flames. Are you willing to take this position? Ah, I do, I do. Sijiskanal cried bitterly, ecstatically feeling that the gods heard his prayers and gave him a chance to live a new life. I will give you certain abilities so that you can torture the guilty souls imprisoned in the divine prison. I want to know all the information about them that is useful to me. Can you do it? I can. I will appoint a person to be the warden of this divine prison. You will obey the warden's command from now on, Xiaoping'an said. After consuming 210 points of divine power, he summoned Wei Shun and explained. Wei Shun was extremely witty and good at adapting to changes. He understood Xiaoping'an's words as soon as he said it. Wei Shun used to guard the prison, but now he can help him guard this divine prison. The killer Sajiskanal will be a soldier under Kai Shun. With 2 people guarding the divine prison, he can save himself a lot of effort. As long as Wei Shun descends to the outer plane, in the secret mandala, there is no upper limit on the time for Wei Shun's arrival, and Xiaoping'an gives Wei Shun some management authority in the divine prison, and the new warden will take office. The prison management team is ready. Wei Shun knew very well what Xiaoping'an wanted. The first thing he did when he took office was to command Sajiskanal to interrogate the 2 red and black mages of Life Muji. After handing over the divine prison to Kai Shun, Xiaoping'an suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. He exited his secret mandala, left the secret room, returned to the room, took a bath, and began to sleep to regain his energy. Xiaoping'an has a premonition that his office will welcome a new customer tomorrow. Note 1, Dengfeng Cultural Relics records that Patriarch Huik sought Dharma, and Patriarch Bodhidharma asked for red snow to fall from the sky, so Patriarch Huik broke his arm and sprinkled blood. Note 2, Patriarch Bodhidharma's safety of peace.